to a live match reaction show on Football Tour Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Honestly, I didn't want to revisit this match, but here we are with the show. One awful performance that we saw yesterday. Uh, my title of the show pretty much says it. Liverpool got scored by Man City yesterday, and that's a concern in terms of the short to medium term. Of course, we'll discuss that in more detail during the show. So we'll do a quick review of the game, talk about the big talking points, which I'm sure has been a topic of conversation everywhere in the last 24 hours. Plus, we will do the player ratings, and of course, if anyone wants to call in, there is a link pinned in the live chat. So feel free to hit that link, and I'll try and get you on towards the end of the show. So yeah, let's start with the review of the game. First half. One of the greatest of starts. Man City were in full flow, in full possession of the ball as well, and they got a bit of a breakthrough as a penalty was awarded for City as Doku falls to ground after a Mamadashvili challenge. Now, for me, I said it yesterday in my watch along, and I've looked at it again and again. For me, it's not a penalty. I feel like Doku was just very smart to know when to fall down. So yeah, I'm saying that he dived basically, because when Mamadashvili came charging in, and I don't think he came in fully committed. He kind of realized the situation. He wasn't going to get anywhere near Doku, so he kind of half committed in that moment. And Doku, because he's so sharp in those moments, realized that. And as soon as he realized that his first touch was going away from him, he knew if he got any touch of the goalkeeper, it should be in favor of the attacker, and that's exactly what happened. So for me, not a penalty, but of course, the referee wasn't going to give it to Liverpool, was he? So Haaland steps up for the penalty, but Mamadashvili produces a fantastic save. Pretty much read the run up from Haaland to the tee and knew exactly where he was going to hit the ball. And Haaland was in disbelief; he couldn't believe it. So a great moment there from the keeper. But Haaland has the last laugh as he breaks the deadlock. Bizarre finish for me because I can't quite tell who got the final touch. Was it Haaland or Konate? Bit of strange, but even in that moment, I feel like Konate maybe should have done better. Only because of his reaction, where he tried to head the ball away, and he was lost because he didn't realize if he made contact or not. So for me, I kind of feel like he jumped, closed his eye, and was hopeful that he'll make a defensive clearance there, but that's not how football works, unfortunately. So yeah, I think maybe he should have done a little bit better there. But there comes the biggest moment of the game. Liverpool thought they got the equaliser after Van Dijk produces the perfect header into the bottom corner from a set piece. And by the way, great corner kick from Mohamed Salah. VAR reviewed it and not instantly because they had the ref go over to the monitor to review it, and it was ruled out as they believed that Robertson was obstructing Donnarumma's vision. Now, for me, that is, and of course, he was offside. That was the ultimate reasoning that they said, but it was a mixture of the two. But if you look at, the replay, the Italian goalkeeper was at full stretch for that header. But for some reason, that was deemed as Robertson interfering, with his vision. Now, if you look at this angle, does it look like Robertson's interfering with Donnarumma's vision? No. It's quite clear that Doku, if you want to label it this way, is the one that is blocking his view. But look at Donnarumma's face. Look at his eyes. He's got his eyes on the ball. So he's trying to get onto that. Like there's no way that he's thinking, "Oh, where's the ball?" He can clearly see the ball. He's going to try and do his best and try and save it, but in the end, he wasn't able to do so. So for me, that proves another point that the whole comment about it being where he's blocking the keeper's view is completely wrong. Is incorrect. And So for me, it's an outrageous decision from VAR. You know, Michael Oliver clearly has something against us. But the big question, why was he part of the refereeing team? You know, he's based from Manchester. Normally, they wouldn't allow someone to referee a game that is demographically near either of the teams. So is that not a conflict of interest? I guess when it comes to Liverpool, the rules change. They get bent over a little bit, I guess. Now, I'm not saying we would have won the game, you know, if this goal had counted. It could have changed the outlook or the way we go into the second half. But I think the big talking point here is, as football fans, all we want is consistency. That is literally all we want. You know, there's moments in the past where Man City have had similar incidents where they've got a player in an offside position or a player blocking a view, but it's been, you know, given as onside to these moments there. But when it comes to Liverpool, it's a complete different treatment. And I was thinking about this the other day. We had something like that against us a few weeks ago. It wasn't in the Premier League, but it was in the Champions League against Atletico, where they had, I think it was Lorente that was in front of Alisson, and he was blocking his viewpoint. But VAR, you know, gave it as a go. I think I don't know if it is true, but different rules maybe apply when it comes to the Champions League and the Premier League. But nonetheless, you know, it didn't help Al Nassr there, and you know, Van Dijk shows his appreciation to the rigged officiating. That's what it feels like. You know, call me a victim or call us Liverpool fans victims, but everything just seemed to be going against us in that game. And this was just the start of it. As the game went on, it felt like you know, we were playing against 14 men. You know, normally you'd say 12 men because you include the referee in the middle of the park, but I'm including the two linesmen as well. Maybe I could even include the fourth official, make it 15. So yeah, it was, you know, it was not ideal in terms of what we witnessed because it was a ridiculous decision and it should have been a goal. And even the most biased um, rival fan, not biased rival, as in even the most, you know, anti-Liverpool, um, what should I say? A rival would say that, you know, that was definitely the wrong decision. So when you're hearing rivals from the media or from content creators or online fans telling you that, you know, we definitely got mugged off there. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But unfortunately, it happens to us quite frequently. So kind of get a bit numb to it. But nonetheless, it still frustrates you. It still annoys you. But you know, it is what it is, I guess. But moving on, Man City gave us the sucker punch just before half time as Gonzalez scores from the edge of the box. Van Dijk with a deflected touch um, towards goal. Maybe should have done better there. But it felt like it was a more of an instinctive, you know, just stick your leg out, hoping that it makes a block. But in the end, it was not good enough. Um, and then second half, we started okay, I guess. Salah had a moment where he was through on goal, but Diaz makes a clearance. So slightly better improvements from Liverpool, but not enough for me. Then we had one great chance when Cody Gakpo came on. Bradley hit a great low cross from the right hand side. Gakpo's on the near post coming in, went with the left foot strike and just hit over the bar. Poor miss. You know, I know he just came onto the pitch, but for me, he should have buried that. Um, and that was at 2-1. Could have been a different. It's not 2-1. It should have been 2-1. Down at 2-0, so maybe that would have been 2-1 and helped us, get a bit of momentum, maybe, fight for a draw or something of that nature. But in the end, Doku, who was by far the star of the show, produces a moment of brilliance and hits a spectacular goal from the edge of the box. And, you got to put your hand up to him. Maybe Kanate still close him down better. But in those sort of short distances, there's not many better than Doku. He can be unplayable in those moments. So yeah, what a strike right in the top corner. Don't think that's really could have done any better there. Salah had a late chance. He was through on goal 1-on-1, hit with the outside of his boot, just missed the post. Unlucky there from the Egyptian king. But look, overall, disappointing performance. Of course, 3 now is probably not a true reflection. They could have probably scored a bit more, if I'm being honest with you. Um, but yeah, we were dreadful. We lacked everything in the game. What was very disappointing for me was that we were losing every battle on the pitch, whether it's ground duels or aerial challenges. They were first to everything. And that's the disappointing thing there. We were not reactive. We were not playing with any real urgency or energy like we had done in the last 2 games. And that's the mind-boggling issue there, because we have the capability of playing at that level, but for some reason it just didn't come around in this game. And I think it's down to Man City's tactical approach. They were way above us, and the title of my show says it. We were scored by Pep, not Lindes, Pep Guardiola. So, you know, normally we're quite aggressive our press, but they knew how to control us in that manner. And, you know, the most interesting tactic was that they targeted Konate, as in they man marked everyone else in the back line, but they let him have the ball because they knew he was a weakness or he was a liability on the ball, because when you give him that space and freedom, he's not quite clear in terms of what he wants to do with the ball, and doesn't have the technique to spray past all over the pitch. So, tactically, they did it everything to the book, and they were so aggressive in their play, whether it's from their pressing or just pushing Liverpool back, and we had nothing to respond with. We didn't really have a defense, we didn't really have a reaction to it, and quite frankly, going into the second half, we were defeated, 2-0 down. It was an uphill mountain to climb. We just didn't have the courage. We didn't have the belief that we can challenge this Man City team, which is a concern. And then I feel like, that was the time for Onslaught to make some tweaks at halftime, change the shape, or maybe even some personnel change, whatever he wanted to do. But he didn't do that. He kept the same team, kept the same shape. And then towards the latter stage of the game, we played with a false nine, we played with Verts as the furthest player of our team or in the attack. That is the completely wrong thing to do, because now you've brought on Gakpo, who is a winger who likes to, whipping crosses there. Then you've got more players on the overload. So Bosley occupying that right hand side a bit more. He's whipping in crosses. You don't have a focal point. So why are we whipping crosses? So tactics, we were all over the place, and I think the substitutions were questionable. I just feel like Slot just did those substitutions for the sake of it, but with no real strategy. And I'm gonna sound like I mention this guy's name all the time, but Chiesa should have been brought in a lot earlier. As a main striker, we could have had a different, more of an outlook, because he brings that press to the team. Other players don't, and I don't think Slot is utilizing the players properly. But at the same time, his tactical blueprint isn't working this season. We don't have to play the same way against every team. Maybe he should have been a bit more tactically astute to deploying a different way of playing in this game. But I don't know. This one hurts a bit, because we thought we were back to our best, or back towards playing our best. Great win against Villa. I wasn't quite convinced against Villa that we were back. I thought it was a good performance, good win. Desperately needed to get the 3 points, but I didn't feel like we played to our level. The Madrid game, I was like, you know what? This feels like we're back. This was a great performance against one of the best teams in Europe. But now, if it feels like, we're back to square one, all that hard work for what reason now? Um, and look, this will be the constant theme for every show, because it becomes a topic of conversation amongst us Liverpool fans. Am I slot out? No, I'm not slot out yet. Um, but at the same time, I'm not slot in, as in I'm not pro slot either. I will say how it is. If I'm not happy with the coach or his tactics, I'm not going to be around the bush. I'm just not. in that mind frame to say I want him out of the club right now. I'm not quite there yet. But he's got a couple of weeks to figure out a solution with us being in international break now. So whether that's a tactical reset or a different formation, whatever the case, it needs to be done. Something has to change. We can't continue playing in the same manner because we're going to notch up more losses than wins, unfortunately. And look, it is very hard to defend the coach. I feel like he's not been tactically aware this year. I've been very surprised with his on-pitch decisions, i.e., substitutions or team selections and all that sort of stuff. Um, but having said that, I still believe he's got credit in the bank from last season's success. But for how long? Not too long. If I'm being honest with you, um, he's probably got until the end of the season to fix this issue. Um, some fans will disagree and say he's not got that long. So let's see. I feel like if we continue to go on a downward spiral and not notch up any wins, December is the month where if we want to make changes, make it then, because then we can appoint a new manager and give them the backing to add reinforcements in January. Because once the January window hits and Arsenal's still there, you have to back him. Whether Liverpool will dip in the market or not, I don't know. We've been linked to a few players, so I'm sure we'll do some transfer shows later this week. Um, but they're not defensive players. I feel like that's where our frailties are defensively from our backline, but also in midfield. But we're continuously linked with wingers right now, which of course is. I'll be honest with you. There's no area in our pitch where I feel like we're good. Like we're solid there. Goalkeeping probably is the only department I feel like we're all right. Defense, we're lacking numbers. Midfield, we're lacking skill, tenacity, energy, everything. Bar Sobozla, he's been by far our most standout player this season. Attack, we've got no real impetus up top. Our wide players don't take on fullbacks. They're not that type of profile, especially Salah. He's not that kind of dynamic player like he used to be. He's got a different way of playing now to affect the game. Gakpo, I don't mean to be rude, but he's a one-trick pony. He likes to just come inside and that's it. But I don't mind a left winger coming inside. Obviously, you're right-footed. That is what you tend to do. But it's his tactical awareness. He doesn't know if he's got a fullback behind him where, Kerkez 9 out of 10 is always on the overlap, never finds him, never passes the ball to him. And even when he's in a more central position, he's not finding the right passes. So that's a concern for me in terms of the way we play. And look, I'm sure everyone's seen uh, Luis Diaz's goal for Bayern Munich. That's just one of the great goals he scored. He's got some fantastic goals for the German side this season. And I'm sure people that watch my show regularly and that have been the last few months, you'll vouch that I wasn't someone that wanted to sell Diaz. I really wanted to keep him because I thought he had a fantastic season for us last year. And what impressed me the most was his flexibility to play effectively on the left wing, but also up top as well. Gave us such a great attacking presence. And I feel like he was just hitting peak form. I feel like he was just gearing up to that. And right now, he's showing Ballon d'Or form, if I'm being honest with you. So, um, look, but I understood the situation in terms of, him not getting the contract that he wanted, and the club feel like, in terms of the age profile, he's approaching his 30s. So, we have to reshape the team a little bit and appoint a younger player or recruit another winger. But why did we not do that? Why did we not replace Luis Diaz? Because I feel like we need that type of profile in our team. Some will say, well, we've got Ruben Gamoa. Why is he not given a chance? He's too young. He's not ready for the first team. It's not smart or good for us to put in a young player that, for me, is still developing, still learning. If you put him in the firing lineup and he doesn't deliver, do you know how much of a knockdown of effect it will have on the player? His confidence will be shattered, and he's only 16, 17 years of age. So let the player grow, let the player learn with the under 23s, let him, apply his trade there, and he'll be a first teamer in years to come. But right now, he's not ready for me. So I feel like Liverpool made a mistake to not replace Diaz in the team. But will we rectify that and appoint or recruit someone in the summer? Not in the summer. Summer definitely. Uh, January, slight possibility, but we'll have to wait until then. Um, but also, the big question is, are we out of the title race? For me, I always try to be as optimistic as possible, but I have to admit, it feels like it's done. I'm not saying a certain teams won it, but I feel like the team, of course, that I'm talking about is Arsenal. They look very strong, and it is very hard to see them dropping many points. This, of course, I know they dropped points against Sunderland, but they're not going to lose 6 out of 7 games. That's just a Liverpool thing right now. They won't be in that kind of downfall, in my opinion. So, but look, having said that, I don't want to sound like I'm on the fence here. We could, you know, change our tune and challenge for the title, but I don't think it'll be a real challenge where Arsenal feel like they're going to get surpassed by Liverpool. Man City, I think, are probably their closest rivals for the title this season. So for Liverpool, our focus needs to be finishing in the top four. And look, there's no guarantee we can do that because of this poor form we've shown in recent weeks. So yeah, it's 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 troubled times for us Liverpool fans right now. You know, I said a couple of weeks ago we're in crisis. It felt like the mood changed because we got 2 wins, but we're still there. We haven't fixed anything. We haven't found any solutions. So it is a concern going forward. So hopefully, Slot can come up with a new master plan because right now it is needed. So before we move on to the player ratings, let me go through the comments. Uh Daz, big up Daz as always. He says, Ozzy, you're correct. It was never a pen, but our goal should have stood. 100%, it should have stood. Um, yeah, just looking at the different angles and everything, it should definitely have stood. But whatever the agenda is, uh, it, it it worked. It ended up being pivotal. And I know Liverpool today, I think, communicated with PGMOL about the incident, about their concerns of the officiating. I don't even know what's going to come out of that. Those kind of things, they don't really end with much. We may get an apology, but how many times have we received apologies with no outcome? So that's the frustrating thing for me moving forward. Excuse me. LSC 20, we got LSC 20. So, Bill Ozzy, the problem with the refs is they police themselves so they know they can get away with things because there's no jeopardy for them other than a slap on the wrist. That is facts. They can get away with murder. It's so true. And it is, they police themselves. That is the annoying part. And that's why, you know, I I I get annoyed when I'm watching a sports channel and I'm hearing the referee as part of the commentator team. Like, why are you there? I don't want to hear what you got to say. Honestly, I don't really care about you, about your opinion on the match. Shouldn't really be in the commentating team. So for me, that irks me. And then you see them in the studio as well. That annoys me even further. And it's like, they've got mics now where they announce their decision regarding penalties, all that sort of stuff, but they're never held accountable for their mistakes. You don't see them doing post-match interviews after the games, explaining their decisions or anything that's incorrect that's occurred on the game. And look, all we get is an apology, a written statement from PGMOL say, "Oh yeah, our bad. We'll look into it to improve." But then, as the season goes on, you keep making up new rules and start bending the rules for certain teams. So that's what annoys me. But yeah, you're spot on with your comment there. LFC 20 says Slot said before the game he watched lots of videos of City to figure out how to beat them. After the game, he said he didn't know how they would play, how they did, what the F. Our coach has been saying some ridiculous things in the last few weeks where, he's openly admitted that teams are playing the low block against us, they're playing the long ball. We don't have the answers, we don't have the solutions. Um, just to quote Pep there. Um, and then to say you've watched lots of City games, and you still don't know how to beat them. Has he forgot we beat them twice last year? So what are you telling me? Was John Heitinga the mastermind of those victories? Because he's not there, is he? So what's going on? Like, like he's losing his credibility as a coach. He's been saying some really reckless things out loud, and that's his nature. He's a very transparent individual, and unfortunately, I think that's going to be a hindrance for him in the long term. But I question his coaching credibilities when he says stuff like that. Um, and I also kind of feel like he's feeling the pressure more. When you say things like that, that sounds so stupid when you say it out loud. You're doubting your ability as well. I feel like the pressure is getting to him, so needs to fix up. Otherwise, we all have to look elsewhere and find another coach. Daz says, "What gets me, Aussie? Why was Mo on corners also big up?" To be fair, his corners weren't bad. The Van Dijk goal came from his corner. So his technique wasn't right, and I think we were quite close to scoring another one after that as well. I don't have too many qualms about Salah taking corners, because I think technically, he does have the ability to do that. Um, I just feel like open play, we were just awful. We wasn't dynamic as a collective. We didn't really, create clear-cut chances, and we were swept away by Man City in terms of their power and their energy in the midfield, and we just couldn't match them. That's literally all it was. So for me, the set piece isn't too much of an issue. LFC 20 says this season we're gonna have to take it one game at a time because we don't know what we're gonna get. It's true, it is a one game at a time kind of situation, which doesn't bode well with me because we should have an imprint. You know, we has for me, I'm still gonna admit, I know fans are changing the narrative, changing the tune right now. I feel like we have one of our best summer windows ever in our club history. Of course, players haven't, you know, shown in this season and they haven't really played to their capabilities. But I feel like we have a great squad. It's just that we haven't clicked, we haven't gelled, whether it's from a tactical point of view or maybe we've done too much too soon in one window, making too many wholesale changes, getting rid of first team players, but then adding like more new players to the starting lineup. It has affected the dynamics of the team. So it will have to be one game at a time. But that's frustrating because I don't feel like the coach knows what he's doing half of the time. So let's see. Let's see what happens. LSC 26 to Daz, maybe for GA, it would have worked if the Van Dijk goes to. Yeah, I feel like that was the first set piece that he took, and it almost led to a goal. So I don't really have too many qualms about Mohamed Salah taking the corner kick there. Football with Enz, big up Enz. He says, big up, bro. Can't stay, just saying hi. Big up, Enz, as always. Appreciate your support. And guys, make sure you subscribe to Enz's channel if you haven't already. LFC 20 says, title is over this season. Our form is too inconsistent. I agree. I was trying to hold on to their life and say, we can still turn it around and, make things happen. No, I just don't see it. We're far too inconsistent. But the number of defeats that we're gaining right now, it's just unheard of. So for me, yeah, even if we, give it a challenge or, give them a bit of a battle, you know, that would be, of course, something. But so far things aren't looking good, and the season has looked like a bit of a failure. I can't lie. Ozan, come back, big up Ozan. He says, "Oi, Ozzy." That fade is back. Yeah, it's back, but no good luck, unfortunately, with the fade. Um, Other kind of course said, "Bro, Ozzy, did you see that Zidane quote recently?" Oh no, what is the Zidane quote? Please enlighten me. If it's got to do with him, you know, being ready to be a manager at another club, that would be great. But no, I haven't seen a Zidane quote. So if you have it, please feel free to share in the channel, and I'll read it out very very shortly. But yes, no, I'm not aware of his recent quotes. So let's move on and do the player ratings. Unfortunately. Um, Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yeah, I was like, the conversation. Your eyes lit up. My eyes lit up because that would be the coach where I'll be like, you know what? maybe I'll be on board with that one. And I don't know if I'm more looking towards the player, but I feel like his personality would give the team um, a bit more of an uplift or a motivation because of what he's achieved and what he brings to the table. So yeah, he would be a candidate. I'm thinking, do you know what? If Liverpool want to go through that route, I'm all for it. So Ozan has presented the quote, and the quote is: Zinedine Zidane, when asked about coaching a new team, he said it will happen soon, very soon. What? And the source is Fabrizio Romano. Damn. Okay, I've been online, so I've not really been on Twitter for the last hour, but I'm sure that's broken the internet a little bit, no? Damn, okay. Hmm. Watch this space. We might get some sort of development. I don't know if it'll be Liverpool, but can you imagine if that is the case? Wow. All right, we'll have to talk about that um in due course. But yeah, that definitely definitely took me a little bit off guard. All right, so back to the player ratings. Let me get rid of this ad here. So Mama Dashvili. I actually thought he had a good performance, to be fair. Um, the penalty save, really, really good save there. No shade to Allison, but Allison doesn't have the best of records with penalties. So, it's good to see Mamardashvili saving one. And I also feel like Mamardashvili does have a good record in those moments. So yeah, good moment there. Was caught in action quite a few times where he had to produce a few saves. So for me, a solid performance from the Georgian keeper. So for his rating, I'll give him a 6 out of 10. And unfortunately, this will be the constant theme because there won't be a lot of high ratings today. For obvious reasons, 'cause I don't think people delivered. Conor Bradley, felt really sorry for him in this game because he has such a great performance against Vinicius Junior against Real Madrid midweek, and he just wasn't able to replicate that. Whether he wasn't given protection because Gravenberch, was acres away from Conor Bradley. He was more focused on being a creator in that game, and Salah, of course, not renowned for tracking back. Um, but I feel like in this moment, we could have left Bradley isolated, and when it was moments in the game where Konate and Bradley, double teamed on him, pause, um, Konate just didn't know what he was doing. He's made clearances onto the player, lost the ball. He was all over the place. So yeah, I felt sorry for him. He did have a couple of moments where he made a few interceptions, uh, but no, I don't think he had the best of games, unfortunately. So for Conor Bradley, I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. Konate, oh my God, what a terrible performance from him. And when the other team has literally given you acres of space to have the ball, but is man marking everyone else, you're the weakest link. So that is he must have taken it as a negative because it's like what do I do? Like, because he's not. I'm going to defend a little bit. He's not bad on the ball. He's just not amazing on the ball. Like he's very basic on the ball. Like he can ping along what top. He can thread the through ball from the defense, but he doesn't have the ability to do it consistently or the confidence to do that all the time. And when you've got everyone being man marked, I feel like it kind of just phased him a little bit because he didn't know who the outlet was. So for me, poor performance. I think in terms of two of the goals, I wouldn't say he was at fault, but I feel like he could have done better. But that's just my opinion there. So I don't mean to sound harsh. Kanate, I give you a 1 out of 10. I was really, really disappointed with your performance. And look, Van Dijk alongside him wasn't any better. I thought that was a poor performance from him. Of course, scored a header. but was disallowed, so you don't really get any brownie points for that. And then the Gonzalez goal, lazy defending, just sticking your leg there. So for me, not good enough, and looked out of sorts in terms of from a positional sense. Um, and due to being man marked by Haaland, he wasn't able to have the freedom to ping balls around. And when he tried to play it over Mohamed Salah or just played it over um, past the goal, as in didn't keep it in play. Um, so yeah, for me, not a great performance. So I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 10. Robertson, Robertson was okay. Um, wasn't Robertson from the last two games that he played, but was all right, I guess. Try to make some blocks. Wasn't really effective from an attacking point of view either. So for him, I'll give him 3 out of 10. I feel like that could be a little bit high, but I'm just gonna give him a 3 out of 10. Actually, I think it's a two. I don't think he was great in this game. Uh, just got a comment here from Daz. Daz giving 6 to Mamadashvili. I'm laughing because Daz always writes Mamadashvili's name in different ways in the course of the last few shows. LFC 20 says, sorry to burst your bubble, but Zidane, as said in the past, he don't want to manage in England and he don't speak English. Yeah, that's why I was very surprised by that comment there. That it will happen soon, very soon. It could be the international job. It could be the French job. So I wouldn't be surprised that they move on from the shops and appoint someone else. So that might be more inclined to that. But I've said it in the past, the name Zidane has been mentioned to me in terms of potential candidate. I just feel like for him, a job in England doesn't appeal to him. He never came out as a player, um, and you say he doesn't speak English, so that's another talking point there as well. So no, I don't see him as a realistic candidate. But then that begs the question: who else is out there? I don't see there being a lot of potential candidates that could come in and do a better job than Slot. Of course, he's not doing a great job. Let's be brutally honest, but uh, it can't be someone that's untested or someone that hasn't managed at this level or someone that doesn't have the credibility to come in and make changes at the club. That would be my concern going forward. But let's see how it goes. And that's with the score 0.5 for Ibu. Van Dijk gets 1.5 and Robert gets 1.5 as well. So yeah, that is fair from Daz Gravenberg. Wow. Gravenberg, I'm gonna try and paint the positives, then go into the negatives. I feel like that's the right thing to do. Showed good moments on the ball and stuff, but at the same time, he was poor when it came to intercepting. He couldn't get hold of the ball. He was losing in one-on-one duels. Passing became wayward as the game went on. He had a bit of a shocker, if I'm being honest. But I feel like there was worse players around him, which says a lot in terms of our overall team performance. So for Granberg, I would give him a 3 out of 10. McAllister, oh god, yeah, back to old McAllister, where he's getting pushed around, showing no energy, no tenacity in his play. Yeah, no great performance from him either. So for his rating, I'll give him a 2 out of 10. So Bosley, the only player that can, hold his head up high because he had a decent performance. Um, the only positive outlet of our team, where I feel like if something was going to happen, it was going to come through or it was going to come from Soboslai just because he was all over the place in terms of his pressing, but he was like wanting the ball. That shows, leadership qualities there. It shows you his mentality that he's not hiding just because we're all playing terrible. He's not going to flow fashion. He's not going to follow suit there. He's going to stand up tall and let the people know that look, I'm going to try and give my all here. and he tried to be a creative outlet for us. He tried to have a couple of shots on goal as well. So for me, he really, really tried his best, but unfortunately, everyone else around him was not on the same wavelength. So in terms of his rating, it will probably be the highest rating, which wouldn't be a surprise to you all. I'll give him a 7 out of 10. Feel like he was really, really good. Unfortunately, wasn't able to impact the game uh, due to the players around him. Salah, I actually don't think Salah was too bad in this game. Um, he did find it tricky up against O'Reilly, but at the same time, did get past him, created some good openings, but not a great performance from Salah either, if I'm being honest with you. Of course, that late one-on-one opportunity he could have scored, but it would have been a consolation goal more than anything else. So for me, in terms of his rating, give him a 4 out of 10. Um, Verts, Verts was okay, and I'm saying that very politely as well. Um, he worked hard, he tried to be a constant menace with his pressing, but unfortunately on the ball, he picked up some decent through balls here and there, but didn't really impact the game in my opinion. And as the game went on, I feel like he just lost any impact or influence on the game altogether. So not the best of performances from our German wonderkid, unfortunately. So for him, he gets a 3 out of 10. Ekitike, it's a strange afternoon for him. Um, I feel like he tried. He really did. He worked hard. He was trying to uh, running, in behind the defenders. Just wasn't getting the service, and that's something that's a concern for me, for not just Ekitike, for Isak as well. When they play on the pitch, why are we not supplying these players with through balls? It can't just come from Verts as well. It has to come from the wingers. It has to come from the midfielders. It has to come from the team in general. So, we can't be that predictable where the number 10 does all of it. It's got to come from everyone else. So that's my concern from an attacking point of view. We're not supplying through balls or supplying services to our strikers. And if they're not able to do that, we can't just expect them to do wonder goals every game. You have to, provide the ball in order for them to have an effect on the game. And look, despite his efforts, unfortunately, just wasn't able to impact the game at all. So for his rating, um, I'll give him a 5. I feel like he worked hard. It's just that he just wasn't able to get onto anything. Um, so yeah, that is my rating for Ekitike. Before we move on to the subs, let me just kind of man of the match. No huge debate in terms of who was that. Of course, it's going to be Szoboszlai. And let me go through the comments before we mention the subs. Although I don't feel like we've got much to talk about because they didn't really have too much involvement in the game. Um, LFC20 says we need to hope and pray that Sobo doesn't get injured 100%. If he was to get injured, touch wood that he doesn't, we are absolutely screwed. Honestly, Szoboszlai has been a savior for Arne Slot. If we had no Szoboszlai, honestly, he would have been out of a job a long time ago. It would have been that bad. So yeah, we hope and pray that nothing happens to Szoboszlai. Wasn't correct saying I'm expecting Ozzy to give Verts a 7 since he is his agent. I'm not his agent. No, I gave him a 3 out of 10. I can't give him a higher score. I don't think he was good at all. Like a lot of players weren't good at all for Liverpool yesterday. Daz's comment is with some ratings was given 2.5 for Graf, 1.5 for Maka. Dom gets a 4, Mo gets a 4, Verts gets a 2.5, and Hugo T gets a 5. So very similar ratings to mine. All that says if Sobol gets injured long term, our season's over. Facts, 100%. And Daz is changing score for Dom, saying it's 6.5. Yeah, I think that's about right. So let's bring on the subs. Um, Trying to get my brain right. So Perkins came on, Rubber. And then we had Gakpo for Ekitike. And then we had Jones for McAllister. Gomez on for Conor Bradley. And the final sub was Chiesa for Vets. Okay, so I think in terms of positioning, it's just these two that need to be swapped. Okay, so let's start with Turkez. Uh, when he came on, like he has zero impact on the game. Honestly, this passing wasn't really there. He's just making up the numbers, so I don't feel like he had any impact on the game. So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. 1 out of 10. Like he had zero impact. I feel like none of the subs did, which is a little bit unfair, but has to be done. Gakpo for me gets a 1 as well, simply because of that miss. The poor miss. I know it came very early on as he stepped onto the pitch, but for me, should have done better. So it gets a 1. Uh, Jones, I did not realize he was playing until probably like the 85th minute. And he came on a lot longer before that. So ineffective. So it's a 1. Um, I'm just not in the mood of giving anyone good scores. Gomez, I don't remember him even getting many touches, but I'll give him a 2 because I don't remember him making any mistakes. Chiesa tried his best, press from the front. Give him a 3 out of 10. So that is my rating, short and sweet, because I don't feel like we need to evaluate um, the subs that heavily or in detail because they didn't really have much involvement in the game. Uh, I was on comments says slots rating. Uh, and LFC 20 pretty much answered it for me in the basement. Facts. What I can't give a score, it's a 0. I'm gonna give it a player 0, but manager was awful. He got everything wrong. And I do question his tactical approach now because he's showing weakness in his methods. And last year he was so different um, with his approach in games and was so tactically aware, making different tweaks during games. Now it's just like he puts out a team that is a flat formation, and then not in these games, in terms of this game in particular, but in other games, we'll be trailing, and then 4-2-4 is a formation in the second half, and it'll be up against like a relegation team. Like that is the kind of level of coaching that he's doing. So for me, that's mediocrity. That is not a high level coach. So that's my concern going forward. So yeah, poor performance from the coach. Substitutions were weird. Didn't make any tweaks at half time, which was a surprise. I feel like he might have at least made some personnel changes. I was expecting us to change formation. He didn't do that either. And then as the game went on, he put Verts as a false 9 before he brought on Chiesa. Chiesa only played for about 8 minutes. So yeah, he got it all wrong. So for me, 0. Awful performance. From the coach, I was then saying 100. Daz with the comment says Kirkes 1, Cody 1, Jones 1, Gomez 2, Federico. Yeah, so you got the same rating as me there. Ref rating from the Liverpool side is 0. From Man City is a 10 out of 10. He helped them win the game. Let's not be around the bush. Ozan with the comment says, Osbro, do you think if Van Dijk's goal wasn't disallowed, we would have got something out of the game? No. That's why, look, I'm annoyed and frustrated with that whole decision because it was incorrect. And my frustration is more so about the credibility of the league because there's too much inconsistency with these referees. And it's not just Liverpool. Other teams will say, they've been mishandled as well, and rightly so. But I can only speak from a Liverpool point of view because I'm watching these games in more detail. And it happens to us so many times. It's become too frequent now. And look, if we had got that goal, it would have been 1-1. It would have changed the outlook a little bit. But I think they would have beaten us because they was just honestly they were playing at gear two, and we were still in neutral, so they're already ahead of us. That's what it felt like. So we were not really contesting with them in that game. So no, I don't really see that happening. Unfortunately, I don't think it would have changed the outlook of the game. But you still want goals to be given when it should have been on the scoreboard. That's it. We just want consistency, as football fans. But we're not getting that, unfortunately. Um, and that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Daz. Thank you to LFC20. Thank you to Football with Ends. Thank you to Oz and Kabak for your comments. And I appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, with it being international break, we don't really have any games coming up. So, in terms of content, I don't have anything scheduled as of yet, but I will give you a bit of ideas in terms of what to expect for this week and next week. We'll probably do some transfer related shows, especially with it being November now. We're going to see players being linked with the club, especially with our downward spiral of form right now. Um, today we've been linked with Minte and Semenyo again. So, those links are going to appear. So we'll speak about that in more detail. We'll try and do some FC26 shows, even though I remember I did it last time. I was ill and completely regretted that in the end. I'm still under the weather, unfortunately. So I'll try and do that at some point. And then we'll do a show where maybe we go talk tactics again. I did upload a video a few weeks ago of potential solutions, so we can kind of revisit my ideas again. But we'll do it as a live show, as I didn't do that live, so we can have a collective discussion and see what will work, because something has to change. So yeah, expect a few different types of shows this week and next week. So yeah, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know exactly what times those live streams begin, and yeah, hopefully lots of content coming your way during the international break. LSC 20 big Aussie, big up yourself as always. That's any FIFA streams coming out, Aussie. Yep. So I will be doing some FC26 streams. I'm not sure what day. Uh, at some point this week or early next week. So yeah, we'll definitely do some FIFA shows. Um, Lewis TV after this TV says Giovanni Van Bronckhorst rating, as well as Sipke Husov. Yeah, they're in the basement with Arne Slot, so they don't get any upper hand in terms of their rating. So yeah, they're with the basement. They're in the basement with the coach there. So yeah, no who scores from me. Um, maybe we go back and recruit John Heiting again. He's available now. He got sacked by Ajax, so maybe that's a possibility to go for. But we can have that discussion another day. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.